It's so generous. You're taking the gifts of something that you have researched, worked avidly in your own life to regulate, and supporting the masses by sharing what it is that you know helps you. And you can just course correct and let it all go and come into a grounded expression and back into the good of the whole like that. That's that high level functioning. Dan, you had a couple of questions about neurodiversity.
So for everybody out there, maybe you're familiar with healing and that's why you found the podcast and that, but what is the tie-in with neurodiversity? What is the sort of the 30,000-foot view of what does that encompass? What's the 60-second commercial on that? And why is that important that we understand that?
So the thing about neurodiversity is like saying humanity, right? So it's all forms of thinking, all forms of how nervous systems work. That's neurodiversity. Neurodivergence is when the way that you think, behave, act, perceive the world is different than the norm, right? And so the norm is basically what most people do. That doesn't mean that it's the right way or the wrong way. People who are neurodivergent, they just have a different way of thinking and perceiving things. And so that way, that it can be a disability, but if you learn how to hack your neurodivergence, it can actually become a superpower. And I always like comparing neurodivergences with the X-Men, right? Each X-Man is a mutant, right? And the mutants, they all come with a superpower, and the superpower has a weakness, right? And so let's say, for example, Professor Charles Xavier. So he's brilliant. He's like the most intelligent out of all of the mutants, right? And he can read minds, but he can actually read every mind in the universe, right? And so the problem with that is sometimes it's very difficult for him to not read minds, to keep people out of his head. And also because the energy is all in his head, he can't really walk. So he has to go on a wheelchair, right? Benefits, but there's also a payment. People who are neurotypical, who work in the normal way, they have a pre-programmed, through their cerebellum, they have a pre-programmed structure of many things. So for example, a neurotypical person, they have to go to the supermarket, right? They instinctively know every step of the way, all the way to the supermarket, right? It's easy. Life is much easier for a neurotypical person in that way, right? People who are neurodivergent, they have a specific thing that is not programmed for them. They don't have the set of instructions. Depending on your neurodivergence is the set of instructions that's missing. If I have to go to a supermarket, I literally have to think every step of the way, like what's gonna be. So if I'm sitting in the couch, I have to first say, okay, Rodolfo, let's get up from the couch. So I get up from the couch. Now what do I have to do? Okay, so let's get like the keys and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So once I'm ready with that, which I usually have a checklist that I go through so that I don't forget anything, because I will. So imagine trying to do every single step. It's exhausting. So many people who are neurodivergent, we are much more exhausted and life is much more difficult for us, but it doesn't look like it.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Joy and I really appreciate it. Hey, if you're liking our content here, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe on your favorite platform to make sure you, stay up to date with all the latest and greatest we put out here at Energy Diagnostics Podcast.
That's right, Dan. And if you're liking our content, folks, please feel free to share so that others may benefit from the wisdom our guests are offering.
Thanks so much, and be kind to each other out there.